Okay, hello, Writing 280. So I want to walk through how to use the Sourcebook on rhetoric for the assignment this week because I think that it's a really useful source that'll get you pretty far in this particular project to understanding the baseline, understanding what people are currently talking about. So I included a permalink. If you don't have the permalink, you can come this way, and what we're looking for is the ebook version of Sourcebook on rhetoric. Okay, so I'm going to click right here on the title instead of the access option so I can show you what your options are. You have a couple different options here. You can download in PDF or EPUB, or if you come in this way, you also have a link to download it here. So while the library has unlimited copies, the risk you run with clicking this button is you may make the source inaccessible for up to 30 days to the rest of the class. So please don't download it. Go through the access options, and then I would recommend EPUB full text because I think that it's the easiest. It will pull it up like this. There's all of the information on the side, and what you're looking for is this glossary of concepts. So you want to click this little arrow. So I'm going to scroll over so you can see the arrow, or caret, sorry, this is the caret. You're going to open that, and then you can scroll down and you'll see the alphabetized list. The Sourcebook on rhetoric is an encyclopedia of concepts related to rhetoric. Pretty much all of you should find your concepts in here. It's slightly dated, but it's the most recent that has been published. It was published in 2001, so if you're getting really new, like if you try to look up something in relation to artificial intelligence, it's unlikely you're going to find it in this source book, but I believe most of the rest of you should find something. Okay, so if I just pick a random letter, I'm going to pick I. I'm not going to scroll too far, but I will scroll past the first entry at least. And we'll go, let's see, the second one is identification. Identification is a really big, lengthy one. It's not one that any of you selected. Let me scroll over this way so you can see. So let me scroll back up. Excuse the scroll. Okay, so the chapter starts with iconicity, and you can tell because the term is always in all caps, and then there's a line. So if I scroll down, because you're all going to do this, you're going to scroll until you find your list in the alphabetized list. Then you'll see the all caps term and the line to denote a second entry. Okay, so step number one. The overall structure of these entries is really the baseline for the digital entry that you're all creating for our digital tool. Okay, yours aren't going to be this lengthy or this fleshed out because we're creating a 200 level version of this book. This book was created by scholars who spent years and years and years studying this. So identification, you can see there's a lot of information here. It starts off with a connection to Burke. We talked about Burke in the 50s and 60s when communications and English split on how they understand rhetoric and who kind of the father of their rhetorical theories are. For communications, it's Burke and identification. So what this entry does is it goes through a lot of that information so that you can build a baseline understanding of the term that you've selected. And then it cites its sources. And what you'll see is once it stops talking about Burke, it should include additional theorists and who's talking about them. So you can see right here, we've already got additional theorists that are building on Burkean ideas and or questioning. You can see that there are additional, because this one's bolded, additional concepts that are being raised or added to the understanding of identification. So in this case, stylistic patterns. And all of these have dates associated with them because this is all cited in APA. But what you'll most likely notice about these dates is that they are a little bit dated since your particular focus and the focus of the source that we're going to create together is digital rhetoric. A lot of these sources you might not be able to use, but this entry is providing the foundational rhetorical understanding of the concept that you've selected. And so these are the things that you are expected to know. You don't need to cite all of this. You don't need to read all of this. You do not need to find all of these. You just need to know where all of the contemporary conversation is starting so that you know what to do from here. So what we would do is find in here the direction that we would want to go. So I'm going to use this paragraph in particular because it has a couple I guess it's a couple paragraphs. So it has a few bolded words. It has stylistic for stylistic patterns bolded as a part of identification. And then if we scroll down a little bit, it has additional. It has invention as well as audience reception. And in this case, invention and audience, these are all concepts that are, because they're bolded, also defined with their own unique entries in this particular work. And that is what the bold is signaling to you, that there's an extra entry. So you can start making connections across concepts, but then you want to balance that with keeping your ideas narrowed and focused so that you don't take on too many additional topics with your concept. So if I go through this and then there are notes, you don't have to have notes for your entry. And then there are references. So there are a couple of things we can do with this. One, obviously this is, again, a model for what your digital entry is going to look like, but also these are entries that you can look up in Google Scholar, you can look up in the Millersville Library, and the big one's going to be you can see who has been citing these recently. And if you do it by recent, you'll get to understand what is it that people are currently talking about. So let's say I take this one, Kenneth Burke and the New Rhetoric. And let's put this in Google Scholar. So we're gonna put the full title in there, and then what it should pull for us is the entry. And so we can see right here, this is exactly the one that was cited. It's been cited by 229. So if I click on that, it's gonna give me the 229 people that Google Scholar knows cited this particular article. Then what I can do is use the date range over here. So I'm gonna pick since 2021 because I want technology. Now I'm down to 15 results. I can browse through these. Obviously the first one is not in English, so that's not super helpful to me. The next one talks about embodiment, which may or may not be useful to the direction I'm going. The third one, argumentation and rhetoric, may or may not be useful, but I can go through this list fairly quickly to see, has anybody cited a source that I found in the encyclopedia, that I found useful in the encyclopedia to my understanding of that particular concept, and potentially already pulled or connected the digital rhetoric piece, which would be incredibly helpful for my project. So that's where you can get really solid connections. So here we have social media as a space for Islamophobia. Well, this is definitely talking about Islamophobia. This particular focus of social media means that digital rhetoric is most likely coming up and a fundamental part of this particular article. So now I've already got somebody making a connection between identification, which would have been my key concept for this particular example, and digital rhetoric, which is the focus of the overall assignment, and then the encyclopedic entries that we are creating. And so I could potentially use this article. I can then go back and look it up in the Millersville website to see if we have access to it or if it's something that I need to request. So that is a quick and brief way to use what we're seeing here in the source book on rhetoric. One, we're going to build our understanding of the rhetorical concept that we've selected. Two, we're going to understand the genre that we are creating to create our source together. And you'll obviously see that I've created the shell of the particular space that we can add the entries. And then third, are there any references on here that can be the start of your particular entry, of your particular direction? And you can look it up in the library, or you can look it up in Google Scholar to start getting a lay of the land. What is it that people are talking about in relation to your concept, so that you can keep your ideas focused and centered through digital rhetoric specifically, not potentially the ways that computer science or other fields deal with your term. If you have questions on how I want you to use this source book, please send me an email or come to office hours. Otherwise, I'll see you online.